to it as a spiritual coup. It seems that, well, I look back at the American Revolution, and I keep thinking, where are all the Paul Reveres?
Yeah.
There are many people who know, exactly how serious times are, exactly what is going to happen, and they're averting their gaze, as is Henry Waxman. They are not being held accountable. They are not standing up, and they are basically on a little treadmill of business as usual, while they know very well that we are going headlong for disaster.
Yeah,
where are all the Paul Reveres?
One of the problems is that people think that the churches will stand up if something was really bad, that the churches would stand up and do something they don't, and I've been hammering it out for years that these churches are already owned and controlled by the beast prophets of Satan himself. They've been dumbed down into submission of the New World Order agenda. They're owned and controlled by their own leaders, and that's why you're not going to get anything out of the church community to stand up and fight. And there's no Paul Reveres in the church communities today because they're all waiting for someone else to do it, and they're not going to. The leaders that are leaders in positions today are there to keep the people dumbed down.
Well, one of the problems with the churches, although not the only problem, is that there are gatekeepers in churches. The people in power in the churches generally tend to know what the issues are and generally tend to know what is going to happen. And they are not standing up at the pulpit or whatever week after week and explaining it to people. They are once again going along the treadmill of business as usual. And there are many people. The flock, the flock, some of them know, some of them don't know. But it seems to be, there seems to be a lot of concern among people that if they stand up, they will end up in deep trouble and maybe on that airplane ride. So people are becoming, people are exerting their sense of self-protectiveness.
Yeah.
And in so doing, they are, in a sense, abandoning other people who don't know and are at risk. And so when I speak of a spiritual coup, I'm speaking of a rising up of the what about me and it might hurt me, and people are becoming much more grounded in the me and less concerned about other people, which is not a spiritual stance. So it is evidenced in churches. It is very evidenced in churches. Yeah. I was going to Beth Shear Shalom, which is one of the Reformed congregations of the Jewish faith in Santa Monica. I had an appointment with Rabbi Comas Daniels, who is the rabbi there, and Rabbi Comas Daniels is out every week protesting the war in Iraq. Well, I had a little appointment with him, and I went in and showed him some photographs of T-valves and asked him if he knew when the system was activated. And he looked very frightened, and he said he did not know. And reflecting how frightened he looked, I thanked him. I left. I came back 2 days later for Friday night services. I was yanked out of the sanctuary by security and told not to come back. That is exactly what happened, not to come back.
Oh, wow.
So that was a gatekeeper issue. I don't believe, I've known about this. I never talked to anybody at the congregation about this, but I have known about this project. Now, maybe he was afraid I was going to start blurting out that there are plans for genocide through the water system. I don't know what he was afraid of, but he certainly didn't want me coming back. So I didn't come back. But that is a gatekeeper issue, and that is a corrupt gatekeeper issue.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of those.
Yeah, well, I know. So once again, that's a church. That's a synagogue, but that's a church, basically. So that's the churches are now,
That's why most of them aren't even in churches today. Most people that do follow the Lord, the teachings, commands of the Lord, find themselves very incompatible with churches today.
Well, churches, I know.
Anything, any kind of numbers. I just watched an interview the other night. They had Joel Osteen on CNN, and did not listen talking about the word of the Lord. It was talking about self-help. He's a self-help teacher that mixes it with religion, and how his father would be so proud that he took a 16,000 congregation, and now he's reaching 100,000 a week or whatever. And we're just not seeing churches today that preach the gospel. We're seeing self-help seminars week after week after week, and funding these beasts, giving them your tithes and offerings, and keeping them with lavish lifestyles. And the Bible describes the last days church of Laodicea, where the Lord is standing on the outside of the door of them, and He's not welcome inside of them.
Oh, very much so.
And that's,
very much so.
Yeah, that's what a lot of things say. So we're not going to get help from the quote-unquote religious communities because they're all owned by the New World Order agenda. They're being run and dominated by them. Their leaders are in positions of the entire communities, per se. In general, I'm still a fan of just the small mom-and-pop church on the corner. And I'm a fan of those, but when it comes to these, we have no leadership. We have no general leadership today for believers. None. You can find it on the Internet, but you're not going to find it through the Joel Osteens, the CBNs, the TBNs, because they're all sold out to Satan and the New World Order. And we don't have it in Congress, the political right wing. I hear this right wing and left wing, and there's no wings. They're all just out on the edge. They're all working together for the New World Order agenda. It's not a matter of if, but when all this suddenly comes crashing down on everybody. Everything we've been stating over the years, it's going to happen, the camps, the martial laws, the persecutions, and now we've got a deliberate planning of mass genocide through our water supply. And all this as a result is going to come back at 9/11.
It all comes back to 9/11.
Yeah, it'll all come back to 9/11. People say 9/11 is going to be the basis that you look back for World War III. It's going to be the basis for death itself for billions of people. Mm-hmm. We're in the Middle East. We're not going anywhere. They've got bases in Iraq now. Got one going up in Israel. Just a matter of time. If they don't get their way with Iran, then they'll go into Iran. Otherwise, if they just step aside and install their own leader, then we can bypass Iran and just go straight to Syria and North Korea. It's just a matter of time. The New World Order has wanted a nuclear holocaust over in the Korean Peninsula for a while now. It's the whole basis of the next phase of their plans is a Korean War. And so we're just looking at stages here, phases. What phase are we going into now? But the stuff that hits home, the stuff like, because you've seen the waterworks people, just city water crews doing this kind of work that you're describing. And it hits home then when you see it done already. Well,
I must say that the men working on the streets do not know what they're doing. They do not know the implications of what they're doing.
Right, they just get work orders.
They're simply replacing valves. The foremen don't know. But the people up in those tall buildings in downtown L.A. who are planning the work and issuing the orders know very well what they're doing. So once again, we have a kind of need to know basis for information, and the guys on the street don't need to know that they're actually constructing a death machine.
Right. I'd like to know how you recognize it. How could they specifically target how they're doing it? How they target an individual home? Something from their end, or something that's being installed on the streets itself, or do they just push a button inside their own headquarters and they can target at home?
Well, see, the way I believe that this is going to, I'm not sure, but the way I believe this is going to work is they have profilers. They have files on every single American, and they know what your ethnicity is, what your income level is, what your political persuasion is. That they've got files on everybody. So I believe at this time that they're constructing